It's about engagement. It's about community building. It's about truly sharing ideas and information in an engaging way with individuals and their tribe of people or communities. Social media in the United States and nationally and internationally is really exploding. As we look at some of the metrics, they're kind of amazing to put it in perspective. YouTube is the second most popular search engine in the United States. There are almost 500 million unique visitors to YouTube every month. Facebook today is the size of the entire internet in 2004. And I recently saw some data that mentioned that 99% of colleges and universities had some type of social presence, and most of those have a Facebook presence. It is amazing to me that the average American is exposed to between 650 and 3,000 advertising messages in a day. And we think about advertising messages and communications and think about communicating and engaging with our alumni and donors, it might seem like an overwhelming task. And today I'm excited to talk about some different ways in which to think about social media, as well as some different ways in to think about the measurement of social media. There are dozens upon dozens of social media channels that marketers are using to reach individuals. And I know that at your institutions, you're using a number of them as well. So the question is, how do we measure the impact of social media? We believe that you measure the impact of social media by establishing goals and metrics and then measuring them. We believe if you can track it, you can measure it, and if you can measure it, you can improve upon it. The very first step of measurement starts with creating a plan. If you don't have a plan in place in relation to what you're hoping to achieve with your social media, it will be very hard to measure it because you won't have established metrics and goals. This is one of my favorite slides in this presentation because it looks like 3 to 4 of the ducks are definitely on the same page in relation to creation of that plan. But there might be a few others, like the one in the front, that's not. And I know at colleges and universities, you oftentimes struggle with people who maybe aren't as on board in relation to social media. And we believe that if you can help provide some metrics and data in relation to creation of that plan and why social media works and how it's effective, you may have a better chance of getting that grouchy duck at the front on the same page. So in thinking about social media strategy, we feel that there are 4 to 5 key areas that are really, really instrumental as you develop your measurement plan. The first one is a goal. What is the goal that you are trying to achieve? What is the channel that you're going to try and reach the individuals through and reach your goal? What is the reach of that channel? Is it hitting the right audience, and is it credible? Is the campaign or is that specific activity sustainable? All 4 of those things need to be thought through prior to putting into place a measurement strategy or a measurement plan. So in giving a brief example, I just got back from New Orleans from the AMA Higher Ed Symposium. And one of the things that the AMA wanted to do this year was to better engage their users and the people who attended through social media. So as we look at the key steps of measurement, the goal was to engage the community that was there and present at the conference through social media. The channel that they chose was Twitter. They felt that it was the most relevant based on the audience who was going to be there. They felt that the reach was the most appropriate for that audience, and it was definitely credible. And they felt like it would be sustainable throughout the conference. This we set out to measure. So Converge provided the live tweet stream of the AMA Higher Ed Symposium this year. We had 2 chances to win a cash prize for participation, for a prize with the most retweets and a prize for participation. In our measurements, we looked at, there were over 1,500 tweets within the 3 days at the AMA Higher Ed conference to that specific hashtag. There was a reward for engagement, a random drawing. Almost 50% of the attendees that were there participated by at least tweeting 1 time. The top tweeter tweeted 66 tweets in 3 days, so his fingers were very, very busy. And the most retweeted tweet was 22 times. It was Liz Gross, and her tweet was, "The marketing office is not a Kinko's." In looking at establishing a measurement plan, you can see how important it was to have a goal, identify the channel, determine the reach, see how sustainable the specific campaign was, and then to set some benchmarks. So again, we were looking at measuring the overall participation and engagement, looking at the number of overall tweets, and looking at what the engagement was throughout that time frame and participation. As you think about your goals for social media, there are 4 specific goals that most colleges or universities have. The first one might be a direct action to drive specific dollars and to drive donors. The second one might be engagement, to connect with a certain segment of alumni or to connect with all alumni. A third type of goal might be customer service, to find out what people are happy or unhappy about by really listening to what they're saying. And the fourth one might be a campaign related to an event, which is in a short burst of time and maybe something that doesn't need to be sustainable because it only happens once a year. So when you're thinking about your social media strategy, think about those specific goals. Is it a direct action that you want someone to take? Is it engagement related? Is it monitoring customer service? Or is it campaign related? This is one of my favorite slides, which I'm sure many of you have seen either on Facebook or in some other place. But as you think about your goal, whatever it may be, the next thing we encourage you to think about is your channel. What is going to be the best channel in which to reach this specific audience? And I like this slide because I think it really determines, or it really helps elaborate on what each of these mediums is really about. As you think about your reach and who you're trying to reach, this is information from Pew's Research Center, which talks about social networking sites and which ones are the most appropriate based on someone's gender, age, race, ethnicity, or household income. And what's interesting to me is that overall, the majority of individuals are represented on social media. So if we look at women and we look at all internet users, you can see that a significant number of women are represented on social media, that the age groups are represented with 65 plus being slightly smaller than some of the other age groups, but your younger alums, those 18 to 29 at 83%, followed by that group that's growing, which is the 30 to 49 and the 50 to 64. You can also see from a race and ethnicity standpoint, really many different races and ethnicities are represented almost equally on social media, as well as household incomes. And several of these different statistics were a little bit surprising to me, but it's apparent to me that from a gender and age perspective, most groups are very well represented, as well as race, ethnicity, household income, and education level. So when you're thinking about this, and Pew has some additional research about specific social mediums and their breakdown of the statistics, but many of your alumni are represented in a variety of different ways on different social networking sites. The third thing we talked about was sustainability. Do you have a calendar? Do you have a calendar in place, and do you have resources in place that really allow you the opportunity to put in place and achieve your goals? So when you think about the opportunity to create a sustainable social media strategy, actually planning that out and looking at the investment of time that it will take and the length of time that you hope to engage with it is very important. So we've talked a little bit about goals and setting a goal, the channels you might want to use, the reach to get to that specific audience, the level of sustainability. Now it's time, once you've had all of those things determined, to talk about the measurement piece. So as we think about ROI and as we think about building a business case in order to support social media on our campus and with our alumni, There's several different types of ROI. So when we are looking at measurement, we can look at direct ROI as well as indirect. And the direct ROI is very related to a specific action or activity. So if we can work backwards from the value of an online action, we can establish the value of a specific social media connection. So as we think this through a little bit further, if your website is the hub of your marketing activity and all of the actions that you're taking are driving people to your website through your communications, either to donate or engage or to participate in a homecoming event, all of these specific activities are driving them to your website, and the web is the hub of your marketing activity, we can measure your effectiveness. So perhaps someone received an email or clicked on a Facebook link or clicked on a link through Twitter. Then they went to a landing page, engaged with your site, made that specific registration, made that donation, had the opportunity to change their contact information. With the web as the hub of our marketing strategy, regardless of what social medium it is that had that person come to your specific website, you can then measure it. We work with a number of schools across the U.S. in looking at and setting up their Google Analytics. So when you're thinking about measuring social media impact and tying it specifically to a direct action, if you utilize Google Analytics and you set up goals in relation to your online donation form and how many people not only clicked on that form, but then filled that form out. If you set up a goal in relation to your mobile giving form, as well as goals in relation to registrations for events, for homecoming, for other things you have going on campus. And even a goal relating to updating that contact information so that you have their most updated information. You can, by setting up goals in Google Analytics, you will have information directly related to which social mediums these specific individuals came from and what goals they completed, thus really correlating in some direct social media ROI. Google has a number of different reports that you can use in order to do this, and they provide very good detail in relation to conversion rates and where the people came from as far as sources in relation to conversions. They also provide a nice social report in which you can see social networks and which social networks are really contributing to your goal conversions. So as you can see from this social report, Twitter and Facebook and Hootsuite were the top 3 social mediums that were helping to create those conversions, Twitter being the #1. So to recap, in relation to direct correlations and direct ROI from social media, as long as we're driving someone to your website and there's a specific goal set up in Google Analytics, we have the ability to tell which social medium was working and contributed to that goal conversion. However, sometimes social media, we do not necessarily have the ability to track it specifically because it's not tied to a certain goal like a donation or campus event registration. In those specific situations, there are several things that we suggest. The first one might be creating a dashboard, depending on which specific channels you're using, in order to measure the effectiveness and the consistency and the persistence of your campaigns overall. The second, campaign reporting. So looking at that shorter time frame of that campaign and tracking day-to-day the activity and the week-to-week activity, looking at what specific social mediums are really having an impact. The third, social monitoring. And I know this is something that's becoming a very hot topic in relation to social media. So doing that listening and monitoring research to be able to tell which channels are working and who are on those channels, what the sentiment is, who the top presenters are, and the words and frequency that are used when talking about your specific institution and events. So let's walk through just a couple of social mediums and talk about how we might more effectively measure or build a dashboard to see if these specific mediums are contributing to your overall goals. Johns Hopkins does a very, very nice job with their blogs, and they've won several awards across the country. Hopkins Interactive is their site in which they've aggregated all of those blogs. And this is a really great example because they have both current student as well as alumni blogs on their website. And blogs are a great way to engage your campus community as well as your alumni in conversations. It's also a great way in which to tell alumni stories. As we're looking at our blogs and the effectiveness of our blogs overall, there's several key things that we can look at. We can look at the number of posts that were done by alumni. We can look at the number of comments on those. We can look at your audience growth. Is your audience return visitors? Is it new visitors? And how is that growing over time? We can look at the number of conversions based on calls to action at the end of a blog. We can look at the number of subscribers as well as inbound links. So if a blog is something that your alumni association or your foundation has, these are some key metrics that you might look at to judge the effectiveness of your blog. Another good example is Facebook. And so the University of Michigan has a Hail It Forward tab on their Facebook page. And I think this is a really good example of using Facebook in an effective way. So this example, Zachary Rabel, 010, is looking for an internship shadowing opportunity in the field of urban planning. It takes only a few minutes through Facebook to help grow your Michigan community and help Zachary visit this link. So this is a great way of using Facebook in order to engage alumni, asking them for their help in helping a current student. Some of the things that we might look at, and some of you may already get weekly Facebook reports, would be fans, likes, shares, and comments. How many conversions are coming from Facebook specifically, and how many referrals are coming from Facebook specifically? You can also, for those institutions that are interested, do some benchmarking against other like institutions. So you might look at the number of fans that other schools have and some of the other statistics. LinkedIn is something that we know that is becoming a very popular medium in social media as well. And MIT does a very nice job with their alumni groups in creating both active discussions as well as engagement through membership. And as you can see here, there are a number of different groups that they've created. As you're looking at LinkedIn and you're evaluating the effectiveness of your LinkedIn channel, you may look at things such as connections, how many you have, who has viewed that page or profile, the number of specific groups that they're involved in, as well as advanced analytics. LinkedIn has a lot of advanced analytics that you have the opportunity to review and dig into further. This is one of my favorite Twitter posts at Providence College, and it's a photograph by a Providence College student athlete showing 3 cross-country runners in competition that was turned into a mural that was 12 feet wide by 7 feet high that would be painted by visitors during Alumni and Family Weekend. This is a great example of using Twitter from an engagement perspective in which to get people excited and enthused about that Alumni and Family Weekend. Twitter seems to be one of the most highly growing social mediums that we've seen in both alumni communications as well as advancement. And as you look at Twitter, you may look at the number of followers that you currently have on your Twitter handle, the number of second-order followers. That's your followers' follower account, which kind of tells you how much you can multiply the message, the velocity, the social capital, the influence of the Twitter followers, the centralization, and the pages ranking on key terms for microblogging sites. So as you're thinking about these social mediums, it's important to think about what the channel is and what you really want to measure within that channel, because there are a number of different options. As I mentioned before, YouTube is becoming one of the most important and popular not only search engines, but social mediums. Harvard Business School put together a very nice thank you for their donors via video that really showcased all the great things that were going on at Harvard during that specific last year. And when you're looking at YouTube, I'm sure many of you have a YouTube channel and are posting videos to YouTube. Some of the metrics that you might want to look at are the number of YouTube channel subscribers, the referrals from YouTube, the views of videos on YouTube, and the pages ranking on key terms from YouTube. So as you think about those different social mediums and channels, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, you easily could put together a scorecard or a monthly dashboard that has key metrics that you feel like would be important to evaluate both week to week and month over month. And they'll be different, of course, based on the number of different campaigns that you have and activities during the year. But they're a nice way to see if you're making progress and how your efforts are really paying off. One of the other things that I mentioned in relation to indirect social media is social media monitoring. And social media monitoring allows you to see all of your social mediums aggregated in one place. So whether it's you were mentioned in Google+, in a news, in a blog, on Twitter, or on Facebook, a social media monitoring tool will allow you to pull all of those insights into one place for you to be able to manage and to report on. So DePaul University this year is celebrating a centennial, where they're celebrating 100 years in 3 of the different colleges: the Dreyhouse College of Business, the College of Law, and the School of Music. And in this centennial celebration, they felt that Twitter was the most appropriate channel in which to reach the alums of these specific programs. They also felt that Facebook would be a good medium, as well as Instagram for pictures. So their goal was to create as much enthusiasm and energy and engagement with their alumni as they could in relation to this 100-year celebration. I mentioned the channels that they chose to use: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. They felt that they could reach most of their alumni that were on social media in this way. They felt that this would be sustainable because it will be throughout the entire year that they'll be spending time on this. And so their goal was to start to measure once they started this campaign. So the first thing they did was create a Twitter handle, pound DePaul 100, and to start to monitor how many times people were tweeting to DePaul 100. They also decided to do a Show Your Pride challenge in posting of pictures. So from the time frame of November 12th to January 4th, they asked individuals to share the pride by including pictures of them as they move through the holiday season and travel to different places where they are with their DePaul gear on, and to post those to Facebook, Twitter, and or Instagram. This is just an example of several of the Facebook posts that they did, pushing people to learn more about the DePaul 100's photo contest. They are also using Twitter quite heavily and have been tweeting over the month about some of the different, asking questions and some of the different things that had happened in specific places for alumni of those 3 specific colleges. And all 3 colleges are using the DePaul 100 Twitter hashtag for this specific campaign. So what we wanted to do is to better understand what the social media responses look like and what was happening in the world of social media. So in a social media monitoring tool, you have the ability to look at the number of new results in the past 24 hours, to look at the velocity of those, the amount of change, to look at what the different news sources are, the different social media channels. And this is an example of their overall social media for the university. But as you can see, number 4, the pound DePaul 100, is the one that we're going to look at in a little bit more detail. In a social media monitoring tool, you can look at the channels, And so one of the most important things for DePaul was to look at the number of people that were commenting on them in different mediums. And as you can see, from August 28th to October 31st, they had 170 mentions across social media. 168 of those were mentioned in Twitter. So when they determined that that was a channel to focus on to reach the audience, they definitely hit upon the right mix. They looked at the sentiment as far as what were people saying in relation to those specific tweets. Were they positive, were they negative, or were they neutral? And most of the comments were neutral, followed by a number of positive comments as well. Because Twitter was the most popular medium, we wanted to look at who the specific people were that were spending the most time talking about DePaul 100. So there were a number of different places, the DePaul Facebook, DePaul Law, DePaul Newsroom, that ended up being at the top of the list in relation to tweeters. But there were also many individuals that had done a really good job of tweeting as well in relation to the DePaul 100 hashtag. And so they had the opportunity to not only recognize and realize who those top tweeters were, but now they have the opportunity to reward them and thank them for their participation as well. All of this information can be pulled into a word cloud. And what's helpful is you can see which words had the most presence and what things were being mentioned the most in their specific social mediums. The entire goal of the DePaul 100's campaign in their first month of social monitoring was to be able to see, with the efforts that they put forward, what the channels were that were working and who was responding on those channels, to look at what the sentiment was of those individuals, and to be able to reward those people who were really participating heavily, to look at different ways in which that they could increase their social presence over the next month and the following month, and to look at the words and frequency that were used and to pick up on those and to be able to use those positive ones moving forward, and to really address anything that was negative. So the goal of the entire first month of social monitoring was to look at and evaluate and do more of what is working in the future and to eliminate what is not working. I think this is a great example of using a tool and technology in order to better inform and capture and provide some benchmarking in relation to their social mediums. So as we move forward in wrapping up, thank you so much for your time today. I would love to answer any questions. I feel that there's a lot of opportunity in the world of alumni and advancement to talk more about measurement and to determine how we can measure based on goals, channel, reach, and sustainability of social media. Are there any specific questions?
Hi everyone, feel free to post any questions you might have in the chat box and we will be happy to answer them. Thanks, Anne.